this so much. Are we ready?
Let's do it.
Yeah. Welcome to Talk About Tatooine. I'm Andrew.
I'm Nathan.
And we're twin brothers here to bring you what's new in nerddom and give colorful commentary on our favorite subjects. Welcome to our cantina. Grab a drink, settle in as we set course for realities beyond our own.
Cheers to that, brother.
Space Marines! Space Marines! Space Marines! Yes! Oh! That's going to sound like hot trash.
For my audio-only listeners, Andrew's freaking out because he plays Space Marines, and if you guys haven't heard, this is a Warhammer episode. That's going to be really evident by the title of this episode, but it's like Warhammer, Warhammer, Warhammer. We just got the Arks of Omen new data sheet just dropped, and Space Marines might be good now. Question marks
It might be
kind
good.
of flow around. We don't know, but they're going to be, yeah, they're playable now. That's going to be really good for you. I mean, you play Space Marines.
Across the board, they are cheaper per unit, which means you can just field more of them, and their war gear is free, which is really where they shine. So
I'm kind of salty about the war gear, not going to lie, because your guys, I was okay with you having Armor of Contempt, right? Which, by the way, if you guys haven't known, Armor of Contempt's gone. It's a goner, but they've turned the Space Marines into a little bit more of a glass cannon. They're not as durable, but they are gonna. Oh my gosh, they're gonna slap! Like I want to play salamanders. I want to play meltas and flamas and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Flamers. Sorry, I play orcs. Very
says
obvious.
the orc player. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm a little worried that you're gonna shred me.
We'll see. We are playing in a couple weeks. We're actually
That's
playing
gonna be exciting.
3-person game on too small of a table.
We'll see.
So,
we might get a bigger table. I don't know. We'll see. I might be able to snag one from Costco or something. I don't know.
I mean, don't get it just on our behalf. But if you do, make sure it's 48 by 72.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, we got to get into it. Every single faction got a point update.
Yeah. I mean, there are sweeping changes across the entire roster of the universe in the 40K tabletop game. Very excited to dive into it. Since you play Space Marines, go ahead and tell us a little bit about that. Start going over some of those. Start from the top, work your way down.
So I'm going to try to I'm not going to go line by line because I don't think that's what people are here for.
That's fair.
If you just Google Munitorum Field Manual 2023 Mark 1, you will find this free PDF that you can read along with us.
And
Go
it's
ahead
like
and do that now.
53 pages. So there's a lot. So if you guys want to hear the most boring podcast about Warhammer ever, we request it and we'll read it. But that's not what people are here for.
That's not what they're here for. Our 20 YouTube subscribers are not here for that. Also, super stoked we're at 20. Like, we were just at 10 a second ago, and we haven't put out an episode in over 2 weeks.
And weirdly enough, we have a few videos, especially on Instagram, that just will not stop getting likes and views. And I'm not mad about it, but also I'm like, what secret sauce did I add to that one short that just
Dude, I don't know,
blows it up? Because it's got 3,000 to 4,000 views on it now, and I wish all of my content would have that. It's our Andor's theory we got wrong.
Yeah, that's probably it. People just love to hear what we got wrong.
They're so wrong.
So if you Google Munitorum Field Manual 2023 Mark 1, you'll either get the PDF right away. If you also end your Google search with file.pdf, it will only show you PDF results. So then it will probably be the first result. Pro tip, that's how I got a lot of free stuff in college. But it'll probably be on a Warhammer community post, or it'll be linked down below. Let's get into it. Space Marines. I can count on one hand the amount of Space Marine infantry that didn't get a point change. Let's see.
I'm assuming you've got that pulled up.
Blade Guard Veteran.
Gotcha.
That's 1. The Tactical Squad stayed the same cost, but their war gear is free. So they still did get... That's a huge buff.
And
Let's see.
I feel like that's much more fitting to the 40K universe. Like Space Marines should be able to like walk in guns a-blazing, like no pun intended, and just be able to like wreck stuff. So good for them.
Yeah, and that's everything from the troops list that didn't get a points change.
I love that. That's super simple. Everything else got cheaper. Like we're talking like what was it? It was a couple points drop for every model. Like that means you're going to be able to field more models. That's so cool.
Yeah, when you're fielding 10-man squads and you have a unit that went down 2 points per model or 5 points per model. Yeah, that's a ton. I mean, we're talking about like I'm going to be able to field an entire extra unit of people on the board. And they're not only going to be more of them, there's going to be more firepower associated with them.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
And it's not even with losing Armor of Contempt. Like Space Marines are still like they're still 2-1 models. They still have like a good save value. And the fact that like they're going to be able to reach out and shoot you so well like means you might think twice before getting in range, right? So like the best defense is a good offense, or however that goes. So I'm really excited for you. I think this is going to make for some really fun games. Like, I mean, I love the Carnage is I'm all about it. Like I play orcs for the chaos and the carnage. Like I'm here for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to go over some highlights of some things that got some cuts. Mostly in the troop category. Intercessors. This is the bread and butter Primaris Marine. So this is basically a 2-wound Space Marine.
Yeah.
For those who aren't really familiar with some of the Warhammer lore, you had your regular Space Marine, which was already like just a juiced up superhuman. They would basically live forever until they were killed. Like that's how much augmentation they have. Primaris is like they got an additional surgery. They're like 6 inches taller. They're way tougher. And so we're now getting these units on the battlefield. And so now the Space Marine faction has more purchasable units than any other faction probably combined.
Yeah. I'm really excited. Like I'm like I really want to sink some money into a Space Marine army now. Like I want to go salamanders. Like I want to like just bring as many meltas to the game as possible, and flamers, like all of that, and some good just so many good stuff.
Yeah. Well, and for a lot of squads, meltas are now free. I'm going to get to that when we get to the fast attack. There's a certain meme army that I created on Battlescribe that I think would be so fun to field on the battlefield. It would cost like $1,000 to build in real life though, so it's not really practical, but that's not why we're here.
Super fair.
Intercessors got a 2-point buff, so instead of 20 points per model, you're now looking at 18 points per model.
Nice.
Let's see if I'm looking at that right. That's HQ. Intercessor, 20 points per model. And I'm pretty sure the war gear is all free. I'm not 100% sure. It's not actually showing on this list because there's so many options. There's a lot. Infiltrators got a huge buff. Infiltrators, which are, I ran infiltrators in the last game we played. I ran 2 5-man blobs. They went from 24 points per model to 20 points a model.
Wow.
And their all their war gear is free, including what's called a Helix Gauntlet. I don't actually know what this is in the lore, but what it does in the game is the first time I make a fail on my saving throw and a wound comes through and is going to potentially kill him, I get to ignore it.
What?
So I have a one-time feel no pain.
Jeez.
I'm so happy.
Your army's gonna slap. I'm excited for you.
Be so good. Be so good. Okay, so intercessors, infiltrators, all of the HQs got cheaper, including my Dark Angels specific. You can kind of see it in the background right there. That's my codex. That's Dark Angels. It's really fun. Right next to little Grogu. You can't see the dried on dog spit because Tumnus definitely got a hold of him.
Oh no.
Thankfully, he didn't shred him. I was like, I would have been so sad. He's so soft. Okay. So that's for the troops. bread and butter units got way better. The heavy intercessor squad also got way better. Heavy intercessor squad went from 28 points to 23 points. These guys slap. They're so strong. They run heavy bolt rifles, and so now they're 5 points less a model. So the Dark Angels Combat Patrol box, which is a Primaris Chaplain, a Lieutenant, I think, might be a Reaver Lieutenant, a Redemptor Dreadnought, and 5 Heavy Intercessors. Honestly, its value has gone way up. I'm like, oh, if I wasn't trying to be fiscally responsible, I'd buy 3 of them.
Dude, I feel that. Like, there's so many models I want to get, and I'm like, I only play one army right now, which apparently for Warhammer people is not common. Apparently they've got, what is it, the Pile of Shame? I don't have a Pile of Shame.
My Pile of Shame is actually behind my codex. It's one of the Raven Wing fighters. I don't remember which one.
No worries.
But yeah, no worries. We're going to keep going through the list. All of the chapter command options also got a point reduction. So things like the chapter master, which was 40 points, is now 35. It's a little bit more manageable. Things like chief librarian, chief apothecary. The chief apothecary, that's a big deal. That's a good upgrade. That one actually allows you to resurrect Space Marines, which is a big deal. Chief apothecary all the way. I usually take that upgrade.
There you go. Very nice.
The most improved for the elite category for Space Marines is definitely the Terminators. Their war gear is free, and they got a 5 points reduction per model, so from 38 to 33, and that includes Deathwing Terminators. So as a Dark Angels player, I'm really happy. And to we're gonna switch to the rumor mill. My prediction for 10th edition, Lionel Johnson, the Primarch of the Dark Angels, will become a playable tabletop character. Because straight up, he's just asleep. He's not dead. He's not lost in the warp. He's sleeping. I mean, it's some sort of like weird trance or whatever. It's been a while since I read the lore. It's all in that book, but he's alive.
Yeah.
He's just taking a nap, essentially.
Yeah, he can come back at any time.
He could come back at any time, and by any time, I mean 10th edition. Dude's coming back in 10th edition.
Let's go. I like that prediction.
I will eat my shorts. No, I won't. That's disgusting.
You're like, wait a second.
Hey, but then we can put out a 10th edition theories we got wrong. Lionel Johnson didn't come, and then it'll, get 1 million views on YouTube, and we'll be famous.
And then people can feed off our pain. It'll be great.
Okay, I'm going to keep scrolling because we got a lot to cover, everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we're going to move into the fast attack here now. People don't take this unit a lot. In the Invader ATV went from 80 points to 70 points and gets Melta free.
Nice.
So that's a net of 15 points off per model, and you can run up to 3 ATVs in a single unit. So what I want to do is get an entire Ravenwing second company and just Invader ATVs, like 15 of them. Just scream around the map, just shooting stuff with their meltas.
I don't like that at all. Also, that screams White Scars, like, dude, big time.
Yeah. White Scars and Ravenwing could really give each other a run for their money as far as total mobility and just sheer, like, white powder up the nostril. Let's go kill some stuff. For the Emperor! For the Emperor! Just broken blood vessel.
Yeah.
That's the one I'm super excited for. We're going to move on to heavy support. I like I said, we're going to try to just keep rolling. Heavy support. Remember the tank I ran that totally just dominated the battlefield in our game? It's 50 points cheaper.
It wasn't an Astreus, was it? It was
no, it was a Repulsor Executioner.
Yeah.
So the Repulsor Executioner went from where is it? They didn't format their 2022 field guide the same as their 2023 field guide. So I'm like looking through 2 documents that don't look anything alike.
Yeah, that's fun.
Where is it? Yeah, it went from 300 to 250. That's huge. So if I was already running 2 Repulsor Executioners in an army, I now freed up enough points to run a 5-man unit of infiltrators. So you're talking guys who can sit on an objective and guys who can just tear up the battlefield with their firepower.
Yeah.
They don't have as much survivability. Like we said, Armor of Contempt is gone. And this applies to Custodes, Space Marines, Grey Knights, Chaos Space Marines, which include, Death Guard and like the World Eaters. Who else uses? I think that's it. But I mean, that's quite a few factions that now are just a little bit weaker as far as able to survive wounds.
Absolutely.
So it'll balance itself out a little bit, but we're talking the amount of firepower I'm going to be able to counterbalance that with. This is still an overall buff, and I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, 100%.
I am not going to go through each individual chapter. I highly encourage players, if you do go through a certain chapter, like I played Dark Angels, look through. You'll probably be pretty happy. Imperial Fists got a lot better.
Nice.
Which is something, because they're literally the worst chapter, which stinks. Their lore is really fun.
Yeah. I was going to say their lore is arguably one of the more important ones.
Yeah. Overall, Archangels and Blood Angels got the most changes. Deathwatch got a few more changes. But I mean, Iron Hands, Raven Guard only got one change per. Salamanders and White Scars only got 2 changes to some of their unique guys, including Little Vulcan Hessian. Ultramarines got a lot of changes, obviously, because they're the Ultramarines.
Yeah.
Space Wolves got the most. Like,
really?
They have a full page of changes.
Nice. Were the Space Wolves just terrible before?
I didn't like them. I proxied as them a little bit. I wasn't really a fan. But again, I didn't have a lot of the Space Marine specific guys. Like, I didn't have any of like the Wolfen Dreadnoughts or like Logan Grimnar or Canis Wolfborn.
Yeah.
Or who's the guy from the books? Ragnar Blackmane.
Yeah.
Yep. Didn't have him. I just had what I had. We're going to move on. Hey guys, welcome back. We had to switch video recording platforms real quick. So now instead of Discord, we are using Zoom. You would think that in the year of our Lord 2023, 3 years into a pandemic that forced everyone to work from home, that Discord wouldn't suck so hard in their video conferencing. But here we are.
It's so bad.
It's not great. We've always had trouble with it.
And that's okay.
So we finished kind of covering some of the highlights of the Space Marines chapter as far as changes goes. Like I said before, and maybe it didn't make it in or not, if you're curious about a specific chapter, please go look up the document. We'll try to link it on our Twitter and also in the show notes as well, because it's important information.
Yeah.
Moving on to the next faction, the Adeptus Sororitas. They had very few changes. Changes to the Sisters Repentia, Mortifiers, and Exorcist. I think that's actually it. Whether or not those are...
pretty simple.
Scrolling. Did I skip the Grey Knights? I totally did. Grey Knights had quite a few changes. It looks like they also got the Space Marine treatment. They're cheaper now. Grey Knights were a very elite army, so this is good that they will be cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
Things that did not change is like the Nemesis Dreadknight or the Grand Master and Nemesis Dreadknight, which is like a dreadnought, but the wearer is alive and not in an armored sarcophagus. They're just riding on the front.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting because the next faction, Adeptus Sororitas, they have a similar thing called a penitent engine, but the person who is exposed to the elements is like that is their penance.
Yeah.
Like they're in trouble.
It's not kosher.
So one thing that is like an honor for the Grey Knights is a punishment for the Adeptus Sororitas. And I realize one is wearing power armor and the other is not.
I'm pretty excited for the Grey Knights just because like when you scroll through and you see so many different units got like points cuts, you're like, yes.
Yeah, they're really cool. If I had unlimited funding, yeah, of course I'd make one of their armies.
Absolutely. And how do you say Adeptus Sororitas?
Sororitas?
Sororitas. I don't know because I hear it from British people.
Like Sororitas better. We're going to move on to the Henry Cavill army, the Adeptus Custodes.
Yes.
They're the janitors of the Imperial Palace. They didn't have too many changes. They had a change to the Witch Seekers, Prosecutors, and Vigilators, which I don't know what any of those do or what they are.
I'm probably the least familiar with the actual Adeptus Custodes Like, you just know that they're basically every single one of them's a John Wick in gold armor, and that's all I know about them.
Looking real quick, all of these got cheaper by 1 or 2 points, so not huge, but not bad either. The Officio Assassinorum all got cheaper.
Which it's just 4 units, yeah?
It's 4 units. The Calidus, Eversor, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Cluxus.
I think so. Yep, that's how I would have said it.
Chicken. The Cluxus. And the Vindicare all got, I think it's minus 10 points.
There you go.
Which is cool. Yeah, minus 10. Astra Militarum basically didn't get touched because they also just got a new codex, right? Is that right?
I think so. I could be wrong, though.
They're good to go.
Yeah, let's get into the AdMech. They've got quite a bit of red, like, ink on theirs. And so,
my gosh.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
AdMech, I believe, were kind of good, but now they're better. Everything is cheaper. Belisarius Call, minus 20 points. Scutari Marshal, minus 5 points. Tex Priest Dominus, minus 5. Engine Seer, minus 5. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. So they're going to get, I mean, that's a huge buff.
Absolutely.
And a lot of their war gear isn't free per se, but it is cheaper, which a lot of the Imperial factions, war gear is everything.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, because that's where you bring, like, your big guns into play, your flamers, your plasma, your melter, your grav cannons, your rocket launchers, your heavy bolters. Like, that's where you get all the actual firepower.
Yeah, or in the case of the AdMech or the Adeptus Mechanicus, the arc rifle, the enhanced data tether, the Omni specs, the plasma caliver, and the, oh my gosh, so dorky.
Transuranic Arquebus.
Sure, why not?
Oh, yeah. Listen to Andrew and Nathan read off a data sheet and see if they can pronounce everything right.
This is peak nerd for
Absolutely.
Sure. Imperial Knights, no change at all. I don't think I see a single bit of red ink.
They might have had some like secondaries and stuff adjusted, but we're just looking at like points values and stuff on this sheet, because even just looking at points values in war gears, this is still 52 pages long. So we're not necessarily going over too many secondaries, although there are some secondaries and things I would like to cover for my own faction once we get there.
Yeah, for sure. Inquisition, no changes. Chaos Space Marines did get some point changes. Not all of them are good. Abaddon got nerfed a little bit. Actually, kind of by a lot. He was a 300-point model, and now he's a 350-point model.
He's so really good, great. Though. Like, he's a really good model. So that kind of tracks.
He is technically classified as an HQ unit, so he's kind of leads your army, but he behaves more like a Lord of War.
Yeah.
He's very good. I wouldn't be 100% surprised if in like, well, I would. They just came out with a new Chaos Space Marines Codex, so they're not going to change his lore for probably a really long time.
Yeah. Well, in the lore, he's the closest thing to a Primarch that a Space Marine can get to.
Yes, because he's got like blessings from all of the Chaos gods.
He's Chaos Undivided, isn't he?
Yes.
Nice.
Well, he doesn't get blessed by the Emperor, though, who is probably going to be a Chaos god. That's a different theory for a different day.
That's a different rabbit hole entirely.
Yeah. Everyone who's like really into the Warhammer lore is like taking off their headphones going, what in just say?
What is wrong with these boys?
Rootin' tootin', Xeno shooting. I can't believe you just said that. That's what the average Warhammer player sounds like.
Yeah.
Not at all. In the Chaos Space Marines lineup, we do see a slight buff to the Chaos Terminator Squad. The Chaos Terminator Squad is a touch more powerful than the regular the Loyalists. That's what I'm looking for. Mm-hmm. The Loyalist Terminator Squad. They didn't get as much of a buff because they can also get blessings from their Dark Gods. Let's see.
The Mark of Slaanesh, I believe, got nerfed as well. So the Mark of Khorne, Tzeentch, and Nurgle are all 15 points, and the Mark of Slaanesh is now 20. I don't know the specifics of that, but I know that plays a decent amount into especially the Emperor's Children, because they were running at a slightly higher win percentage as far as like tournaments were going, and so I believe that was just a little bit of nerf there as well.
Yeah, well, they are that is the god of excess, so makes sense that it would be a little excessive.
What?
Let's see. Can you run Khorne, Lord of Skulls? Is that just the Chaos God himself?
Weirdly enough, I was reading that like under the Lord of War tab, and I was like, is that the big red dude himself? Well, actually, the big red dude's Magnus, but like the big red dude, like, oh, that would be amazing. And that's just general. And then like you get into like the Death Guard, where the Lord of War is Martarian, Lord of War for Thousand Suns is Magnus the Red.
That's not the Chaos God. That's like his champion.
Gotcha. That makes more sense.
It looks like a demon engine. It's like a half Terminator body with like AdMech treads on the bottom. Yeah, that's not the Chaos God.
I'll take it.
Moving on, the Defiler did get a nerf as well. It's 10 points more expensive. We're going to move on to the Death Guard. These are the Plaguey Boys.
Death Guard are pretty cool.
They do have a lot of changes. The first change is to the Plague Marines. They took a 1 point buff.
Nice.
Or no, a 2 point. They were 21 points per. Now they're 19 per. So down almost to the same level as regular tactical Marines, although they're still significantly better.
Because they're operating under the blessings of Papa Nurgle. So
yes, the Biologus Putrefier down 5 points. The Foul Blight Spawn down 10 points. Tallyman is cheaper by 5 points, which is a pretty good. He gives you extra command points, which is really good.
Nice.
Nurgle has some really fun command tactics. I'm stopping here on Death Guard because this is the second army I want to build.
Yeah.
So I'm very interested in Death Guard. One of the times we played our Grand Defense setup, which was a 2v1 setup we played on Tabletop Simulator. I played as what was it, a 3,000 point army of Death Guard? Yeah. Oh, it was so much fun.
That was a lot of units.
Oh,
so many.
And the big one from that is Mortarion did not get a point change, which is good.
That makes sense. He's 450. He is a big boy on the board, which makes sense. He kills anything he touches, and he's hard to kill.
He's very hard to kill. That's pretty much it. At least that's all I want to cover. From there, the Thousand Suns, there's no changes really, other than war gear changes here and there that the other factions already saw. Magnus the Red stays at 420, which is kind of a bummer because he's definitely the weakest of the Demon and Primarchs right now. We haven't seen a lot of Angron play yet, but like Angron seems like he's pretty good.
Yeah.
So we kind of wish we would have saw a buff to the points value for Magnus the Red. I mean, 420 is still nice, but we wish it was lower.
We got a lot of changes to, I don't know if you've looked through and watched the video of Auspec's tactics on the Harlequins or not. Did you end up getting a chance to go over that?
No, he put out so many videos in the last 2 days. I'm really only like halfway through. Auspec's tactics is, I would say, the best Warhammer tactic channel on YouTube.
Yeah, he's clear, concise, like exactly, keeps it simple. One of the coolest things I saw right now was for the Harlequins. So that is, and I want to point this out because this is one of the highest winning factions in 40K right now. Like it has one of the highest win percentages. I believe he dropped the stat that it was like a 57% win rate in tournaments, which is crazy. So like, and that's just stupidly good. So, they got nerfed just a little bit. So a lot of their army had a 4+ invuln save, and now that's been moved to 5+. So the army
that's a lot more reasonable.
It is. So that means, I mean, because like when I'm running orcs, I'm usually running in phase 1 or 2 of the WA, and so especially when most of the combat is happening, because once you get into turns 3, 4, 5, like everyone's already dead by that point, at least how I play. And but from there, it's like that's pretty similar to what I'm running on my orcs. Some of their secondary objectives did get nerfed as well, so like that kind of stinks. But again, this is the highest winning faction. Like they needed to get nerfed a little bit, but they did get some things buffed, which is pretty cool. So one of their stratagems is called Fire and Fade, and I really want to highlight that. So one of the really strong heavy support units, the Void Weaver, I would highly recommend, like after this, like taking a look at its stat sheet. It's pretty beefy, and has the ability to like really deal out some damage. So after they shoot, they basically can make a 7-inch move. And so these units can fly in. They have 3 different shooting weapons. Minimum distance that they can shoot is 24 inches. So they already are 2 feet away from you, which is well outside of shooting or out of charge distance, right? So like you have that melee buffer already there. You're putting a ton of damage in, and then they can zoom out another 7 inches. So like they can get out of cover and then go back in cover, because this model only has 6 wounds. So really, really easy to kill if you get on top of it. But with 2 shuriken cannons and a Void Weaver Haywire cannon, it can do a crazy amount, potentially between 8 and 12, because it's 2d3 and all the way up to 30 damage if you were to roll perfectly. So it can really deal out some damage. You should Google how people paint these as well. It is a work of art how people go through this. So that's one of the big ones. So now, instead of only being able to use that tactic once a game, now they can use it as long as they have 2 CP, I believe. So like crazy good, but also like it deserves to be 2 CP, because that means they can't do that every turn, because you would burn through your CP too quick. And you'd be basically using all your command points just to be a nuisance with 1 unit, but it's very nice. So if you want to do that twice, and like even potentially just being able to do it twice is a huge strategic boon. So if you need to like save that for later, and you're like, oh, I really need to hit those guys, but I only have 3 wounds left on my Void Weaver, like you can use that strategy to really give it some extra protection if it needs to get out of range. Like imagine playing Tau and like your hammerhead gunship is like trying to sight in with a railgun, right? And it's like, I need to get out of here. I need to get out of line of sight. I need to be obscuring, and you're good to go. All right, we are back. Sorry for the break here, guys. Let's call it technical difficulties and why we had to exit there really quick, but we're going to get right back into it. We had just discussed a little bit about the Harlequins, and then we get into the Eldar. So like the Farseers, some of their Skyrunners, things like that. They got some point drops, which is kind of nice. We're not going into, again, some of the stratagems, so I don't know how well their stratagems fared, but they got a few changes, nothing super crazy. Looks like some of their HQs, so the Farseer and the Farseer Skyrunner both got points modifications. Then if we get into elites, looks like none of their troops actually got points changes, so their troops are completely untouched. The elites, then we're looking at the Warlock Skyrunners, Warlocks, Wraithguard, and they all got a little bit of points changes, so good for them. And the Wraithguard itself got its D-Scythe upgraded, which is kind of nice. Then we get into the fast attack. The Shroud Runners, looks like they got a little bit of a point drop, so their unit cost is now down to 30 points per model. Or I shouldn't even say the drop, I just know they're changed. Now they are now 30 points. Yeah, so if we're looking at, let's go down to heavy support. So if we're looking at the Dark Reapers, which, fun fact, Dark Reapers are actually one of my favorite units in the Dawn of War games, because they're so good. Spit out so much fire. They went from 150 points per unit now down to 135. So they took a 15-point buff. That's pretty stinking good.
That's huge.
That's going to be really, really good. Then we get into the Harlequins. We talked quite a bit about how the Harlequins are going to get a huge buff, or a huge nerf, to their invuln saves. So like their points are staying mostly the same. If we're looking at the Death Jester, the Harvester of Torment, big change here. So in 2022, Harvester of Torment was 15 points to add to the Death Jester. Now it's 40 points. It's a 25-point increase.
Well, go down to the Shadow Seer and look at Mirror Architect. It's even worse.
Oh my gosh, 25 to 60. So these were obviously like super overpowered, way too strong, like big nerfs. Like that's really crazy. Another really good faction, which honestly I would never really consider playing, is the Drukhari. I don't know what it is, but I just like don't care about them too much. We did see a little bit of a nerf to the Homunculus, so now from 70 to 80 points, so plus 10 points on that. If we look at the Witches, they actually got a little bit of a buff. So now they went from 11 points per model down to 10 points, which is pretty good. And then the Racks did get nerfed a little bit as well, so up from 8 to 9 points per model.
Question for you.
Yes.
Did you play the Drukhari faction in Dawn of War Soulstorm?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. They were really creepy. Well, I to be fair, I beat the game with every faction. So
did you like playing as them?
They were all right. They were really like their units, especially their troops, were super frail. Like I just felt like they would die so much.
Yeah.
So
I didn't like them for pretty much that exact reason. Yeah. So because I didn't like them in the game, I don't really want to play them on the tabletop.
I'm kind of the same way. If I don't like a game, if I don't like them in like the Dawn of War series, then I do have a bias against them. Mm-hmm. So that's always fun. It does look like if we go back into the data sheets, Beastmaster got a 5-point buff. So that is a thing. And that's about it for the Drukhari. I know that they play really, really well. So that's pretty cool. Weirdly enough, we actually did see some changes to the Leagues of Votann, and now I'm gonna have to be a little careful with how I say this because Leagues of Votann does not exist in the 2022 field manual, so there's actually not a spot for them currently. But it looks like Cal is now 90 points. The Einar champion is now 120 points. Grimnir is 100 points. Hearthkin warriors are now 13 points per model. The elites, which is the Chthonian berserks, are now 33 points a model. And the looks like the Brokir Thunderkin are now 35 points per model, and the Hecaton Land Fortress 310 points. And I want to say those are nerfs, but I'm not sure because I'd have to probably go on Wahapedia really quick and actually confirm all that. But the Leagues of Votann are a fairly new army, brand new, and they're already getting changes, which is good. That means like Games Workshop is like staying with it, and they're like, hey, because Leagues of Votann is S tier, like they are so good, they just crap on other teams, and it's because they're brand new, and people, they want them to play them, but they're like, okay, we're going to bring them down just a little bit. So that's kind of what I see going on here. Let's get into the Necrons. Now, normally when we play in-person Warhammer, a good friend of ours does some pretty crazy work with the freaking robot mummies. And it drives me nuts, but it's super fun and it's always super competitive. Necron warriors went from 13 to 11 points per model, so they're actually cheaper now, which is kind of irritating because we usually fight hordes of like 19 of them.
Yeah, that's the backbone of their army.
Yeah, and especially
now it's cheaper.
Yeah, and because the way they usually get played against us, there's hordes and hordes of resurrection, and so those
so hard to kill.
Like they're just going to be cheaper, and that's good for them. If we're looking at the death marks, they got a 2-point buff as well, so they went down to 13 points. And then we look at the
sniper unit,
correct. And then if we go down to the Triarch Stalker, it was originally 120 points and is now down to 110. So 10 points off is like pretty good. And keep in mind when we're talking about these points, the difference of 5 points and 10 points is like the ability to take extra war gear into battle, right? Or being able to take an extra model across your entire unit, or in your case, taking extra units. So like this is a really big deal to go through all of that. So that's really good. Then we go down into some of their fast attacks, the Tomb Blades, which personally I think that is a super cool name for a model. Got a 2-point buff, so now they're at 18 points. The Triarch Praetorians are 20 points now, so they also got a 2-point buff. Why are the Necrons getting buffed? I don't know. But there's some other stratagems and things that I believe are going to be kind of evening this out.
Yeah. We have a little bit of bias because we've primarily played against Necrons. And if I'm going to be open and honest with our listeners, I'm about 2-8 against Necrons. Just really get my butt handed to me over and over and over again. So I'm not super thrilled that they're getting buffs across the board.
That's fair.
But I think the buffs that my army is getting are still more substantial.
I'm excited for you, especially with all those heavy weapons. You're going to be able to take out bigger swaths of those warriors, and especially some of those like those what did we have? The Canoptech Doomstalkers, like you'll be able to take some of those down pretty well. Let me see, where did I leave off on? All right, heavy support. We're going into the Doomsday arc. It is now 145 points, so a 15-point nerf. So that's good when stuff is really, really good. It's kind of nice when they're a little bit more expensive. if we look at the Ghost Ark, which is one of the dedicated transports, it actually got a 15-point buff. So that's pretty cool. Good for them. The Monolith got a 30-point buff along with the Obelisk. So now both of those are 270 points, which is crazy good. And then we look at the Tesseract Vault, a 400-point model is now 360. So it got a 10% buff, which again, 10% of 400 points is 40, which means like that's 3 more warriors and like a piece of war gear, essentially, like added to your army, just because one model's a little bit cheaper. So pretty cool. Pretty cool stuffs. We got the orcs. Now, the orcs, when you're looking at the data sheet, got very, very little done to them, but some really notable changes are their war gear is a lot cheaper now. It's not free like some of the other factions, but like it was so expensive because boys run, let me see, they're 8 points a model. So when you're adding a kill saw to a boys mob, that's more points than the actual model itself. And so when we were adding things like combi rockets and scorches, because like auto hitting is really nice, and rocket launchers, you can make your boys teams way more dangerous for way less points now. So the combi rocket, scorcha, and rocket launcher all are now 5 points instead of 10, which is awesome. And this is going to make a big difference for the knobs as well. Now, I have a big unit of knobs coming in the mail. I don't know when they're going to get here. They're shipping from an unknown part of the world. Who knows?
That's what you get for buying proxies on Etsy.
Yep. But the cool thing is that the Kill Saw, Combi Rocket, Combi Scorcha, and Power Claw, all 4 of their war gear options are now cheaper. So very, very excited about that. And I usually run Goffs. And if I'm not running Goffs, I'm usually running Bad Moons. So it's either like Shuda based, like as much DECA as possible, which the Combi Rockets and the Combi Scorches are going to be super helpful, or I'm running Goffs because I really love Gazgul. And so the Kill Saw and the Power Claw are going to do crazy amounts of damage. So really, really excited about that. That's going to be a fun one. The Pain Boy is now 10 points less as well. I don't run any Pain Boys currently. I don't actually have that big of an army. And so it's kind of like, yeah, whatever. A big notable difference as well, if we get into the heavy support, is the Flash Gits. Now, do you remember playing the Flash Gits in Dawn of War?
No. Which ones are those?
So those are the ones with the big snaz guns. They're the heavy support ranged units.
Yes, I do. They were like the size of obliterators or something.
They're big orcs with big guns. So these guys are now 20 points a model, and that's down from 25. Arguably, it's a lot really for an orc. But it's a huge reduction. It's a 20% reduction because these models were considered to be one of the worst models in the army, which didn't make sense because in the canon of the lore, these guys would like tear stuff up, right? They have the biggest guns possible, like really, really good. And then they're just like, oh yeah, whatever, we're just gonna shoot a few things. Like, oh no, you. So if you're running 10 models at 25 points, that's 250 points. You could almost switch that out and run Gaz almost, because Gaz is a 300-point model. So it's like, okay, I could run one of the best HQs in the game, or I could run a bunch of guys that might not actually kill anything. So kind of a big change there. The Gorkanaut and the Morkanaut also both got 15-point reductions as well. So nice. Super excited about that. Or sorry, not 15-point reductions, much more than 15 points. It's like more like 15%. The Gorkanaut went down 35 points, and the Morkanaut went down a little bit as well. Go ahead.
So you mentioned you ordered a lot more orc pieces.
Yeah.
What kind of point value is your army going to look like once everything shows up in the mail?
It's going to look closer to 16 to 1700.
That's pretty good.
All right, guys. So today has been littered with technical difficulties. So if this seems like an abrupt cut, bear with us here. And let me switch that back over. So there we go.
Everything. Our 4th or 5th restart?
Yes. It's been a day, but we're very happy you guys are sticking with us. We just have so much that we want to go over. So we are picking up at the Tau Empire here, guys. The Tau did get nerfed, so a lot of their units did take nerfs. So the commander in Cold Star Battlesuit, commander in Enforcer Battlesuit, and in the Crisis Battlesuit all got a 10-point nerf. So they're just a little bit more expensive. The Krook Carnivores, that one of their cheapest troop units, has now 7 points per model instead of 6. So we're getting a little bit of change there. Another HQ unit, the Ethereal, the big blue boys themselves, are now 10 points more expensive. If we're looking at some of the elites, we look at the Crisis Battlesuits and Bodyguards. Both of those got another nerf, about 10 points as well, because they are very good. They're a very fun shooting army. I would really like to build some of that myself. And then we get into some big changes when we look at Tyranids. Now, Tyranids got nerfed. This is a really strong S tier team, so we want to make sure that we go over these in detail as well. All right, so we're going to get into the HQs first for the Tyranids. The Neuranthrope, Old One-Eye, Turvagon, Winged Hive, Tyrant, all getting points nerf. So a lot there. When we look at the troops category, the Tyranid Warriors didn't get a per model nerf, but they did get some of their war gear. Some of their free war gear is now 5 points and 10 points added. So the Barbed Strangler, Bone Sword, Death Spitter, and Dual Bone Swords now cost a little bit more points, 5 points respectively on each of those.
Bummer.
Yeah, a little bit of a bummer, but this is a pretty elite army, and they win games. So,
Tyranids? They're
Tyranids, yeah.
They are elite as in they win, but they are not elite as far as their model count. Their model count is very high.
Which does not make sense, because they're so good. They're crazy. So it's good that they're getting a little bit of a nerf. Then we get into some more of their elites. So the Tyrant Guard, Venomthrope, and Zoanthrope all getting nerfed as well. So just a little bit more on the points model, or points per model, excuse me. Fast Attack, Raveners getting a little bit of a nerf as well, and the Trigon getting a little bit of a nerf there. And I say a little bit, some of these are pretty substantial. So if we look at the Trigon, for example, let me get to that on the previous data sheet as well. Sorry, I scrolled past and went to the Gene Stealer cults. Where did it go?
Points.
15 points, thank you. This is really trippy because everything's not in the same spot. It's like, so you're looking at the same.
Yeah.
You sent me these PDFs, so yeah, you know what you're looking at. So just a little bit there. The Tyrannofex is now 185 points, whereas previously it was 170, so another 15-point nerf there as well. And one thing to note that I didn't note before we had some technical difficulties was that the adaptive physiology synaptic enhancement is 15 points now, so a 5-point nerf to that as well. Then we get into the Gene Stealer cults here, guys. Kind of a fun. I really like the lore of the Gene Stealer cults. I think they're pretty fun. The Acolyte Icon Ward, 65 points now. So a little bit of a buff. It's kind of funny that the Tyranids, oh my goodness, I said so many wrong factions. The Tyranids got nerfed and the Gene Stealers got buffed. I think that's like kind of humorous. So those two are like a little bit closer together now. Yeah. The Icon Ward is now a little bit cheaper, 10 points down. So good for him. The Primus is now a 70-point model instead of 80. Then we get into the troops. It looks like a lot of their war gear is improved, and this is pretty common throughout the Gene Stealer cult. So now basically anybody that can hold a cult icon is going to go from 20 points down to 10. So that's pretty good. So that means, again, better war gear, which means you can take more of it, more units, however it comes out to. All right, guys, we are back at it. Today, it's been a day. We're going to get into some more of the elites for the Gene Stealers. The next one we need to review is the Locust. So it looks like it got a 5-point buff. So that is going to be a little bit more affordable. The Reductus Saboteur, 70 points now. So 10 points off, pretty good. Atlan Jackals, little bit more expensive now. So this unit got a little bit of a nerf, and the Atlan Wolf Guard, a little bit of a nerf as well. Weirdly enough, the Mining Laser got a little bit of a buff, so 10 points easier to bring that in. So, and those are the last of the factions we are going to go over in that data slate here today, guys. Thank you guys so much for sticking with us. We're going to be going through a lot more 40K content here, guys. There's enough lore and 40K to basically sustain this podcast for the rest of eternity. But we also want to cover other subjects as well. But we know we have a ton of Warhammer fans, and we are big Warhammer fans ourselves. So we want to make sure we are keeping you guys up to date. If you guys liked the video or the podcast, depending on how you guys are watching this, please like, comment, and share it with a friend, guys. We're still really small. Like, we don't have that many listeners. We're talking in like the low dozens right now. We do have a lot of people who like watch our YouTube shorts, for example, but that doesn't equate to quite the same amount of listening time that we'd love to see on the channel as far as performance goes. I spend a lot of maybe too much time looking at analytics, so we'd love to see those numbers go up, because
that tracks.
I love numbers. But really, we just want to make sure that we're getting to know, like, we want to cover content that you guys want to hear. So make sure you guys are commenting on videos, on our short content, stuff like that, because then we know what you guys want to hear. We make theories all the time. We're wrong a lot, and people love feeding on that salt. So
y'all
if you guys
really like us being wrong.
So that's always good, but we really want to open up as many avenues and branches into nerddom as possible, so that everyone can enjoy these hobbies as much as we do. So thank you guys so much for listening today. Like, comment, subscribe, do all the YouTube-y, like, subscriber podcast things. You guys know what to do by this point.
Please and thank you.
Please and thank you. Absolutely. And until next time, praise the Emperor.
Oh, the Emperor.
The Emperor.
Close your eyes.